The $1,000 Emergency Fund as recommended by Dave Ramsey. My thoughts and opinions on this $1,000 with the current environment we're living in. Let's get into it and discuss all the details. All right, so you've probably heard about Dave Ramsey. He's been around for a very long time, helping millions and millions of people turn around their financial situation and ultimately getting those people out of debt. In fact, I've been following Dave Ramsey for a number of years now, and I've even applied some of his concepts to my own personal life to help me out with my financial situation as well. So Dave's teachings and philosophies are incredibly helpful, especially with the current environment we're living in right here, right now. So all due to respect to Dave Ramsey and his teachings right here in this video. However, I do want to talk about the $1,000 emergency fund that he often talks about as part of the baby steps that he also often talks about. So let's get into it and discuss all the details on this $1,000 emergency fund. All right, so let's rewind a couple years, maybe 2-3 years, something like this. When it comes down to a $1,000 emergency fund, if we rewind back to 2019 or maybe 2018, I totally agree. A $1,000 emergency fund would be plenty for the vast majority of people. However, things have changed. We're dealing with a totally different situation now. We're all wrestling around with a completely different animal these days. And I do want to talk about that $1,000 emergency fund because things have changed in a very, very big way for the vast majority of people right now. And I'm going to tell you this much. I don't think a $1,000 emergency fund is going to cut it anymore. I can actually give you a personal example here in a few minutes if you'd like me to show you exactly why I think a $1,000 emergency fund, don't get me wrong, it's certainly better than nothing, but at the end of the day, I'm feeling like these days the emergency fund probably needs to be significantly more than that. And don't get me wrong as well. I continue to watch everything very closely right now, and I continue to see report after report after report on a regular basis coming out showing Americans are struggling right now, not enough money, incomes are not keeping up with expenses, there's this high inflationary period that we're all living in, prices continue to rise on literally everything, and I continue to see more reports popping up right now showing the average American is living paycheck to paycheck. So, setting aside some extra cash right now to build up an emergency fund above and beyond $1,000, don't get me wrong, I totally get it. It takes a very long time. Even to establish the first $1,000 can take a very long time for the vast majority of people. You know, probably several months to build up $1,000. Peeling off an extra 100 here, an extra 50 there, an extra 20 there, an extra 25 there, things like this, and it all builds up. It takes a very long time to build that $1,000. However, let me quickly give you an example from my personal life, something that just happened a short time ago, a few weeks ago, to demonstrate why $1,000 as an emergency fund, don't get me wrong, is certainly very, very helpful right now, but at the end of the day, $1,000 these days does not go very far anymore. All right, so let me give you this quick example and show you why these days I'm feeling like a $1,000 emergency fund probably needs to be more like a $2,000 or $2,500 emergency fund simply because of price increases on virtually everything by about 100%. I mean, seriously, on some things out there right here, right now, we've seen massive increases in price by 50%, 100%, even more in some situations. So let me give you a quick personal example. A few weeks ago, our air conditioning stopped working. I tried to work on it myself, tried to tinker around with it, play with a bunch of buttons and push a bunch of things and crank out a bunch of buttons and nuts and bolts and things like that, and ultimately it didn't work. I thought I'd try it out, but I thought, you know what, let's just see if I can figure this out myself. It didn't work, so I made a service call and had somebody come out to take a look at the air conditioner unit. Well, interestingly enough, it happened to be the capacitor. Well, what's weird about that is a few years ago, about 3 years ago, the same issue happened. The capacitor went out on the air conditioning unit. I had somebody come out, replace it. It was a very simple fix. It took about 5 minutes for the guy to come out, put the new piece in, and all of a sudden it was $189 later. And again, this was about 3 years ago. We were on our way. Air conditioning was working great. He was happy. We were happy. We were down $189, but ultimately the air conditioning was was working once again. Well, same thing happened. 3 years later, just as of about 3 weeks ago, same issue happened. Air conditioning wasn't working, made a service call, the guy came out and said, yep, looks to be your capacitor being bad. And I said, oh, that's kind of interesting because we just got it replaced 3 years ago. So I thought, okay, with price increases, it's probably going to be about $200. Oh, I was kidding, or I was a little bit wrong on that one. Here's what it ended up being. Again, guy came out, looked at it, super easy fix, 5, maybe 7 minutes after analyzing the situation and putting the new piece in, things like that. He came out with a total $360 for the same old thing that we got replaced just 3 years prior for $189. That's almost a 100% increase in price. So my point about this is a personal example right here that I want to share with you simply because it shows you this one expense alone, $360, removed more than 30% out of the emergency fund of $1,000. Okay, so $1,000 these days is not getting us much anymore. However, like I said at the beginning of the video, $1,000 maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, maybe even 2.5 years ago was probably totally fine. Things were totally different then. However, not only is prices going up on everything, as in the goods that we are buying on our store shelves, but labor prices have gone up significantly, right? Labor on virtually anything. If you were to go get some work done on your car or on your air conditioner like this, or your furnace or virtually anything, labor prices are unbelievably high right now. So, unfortunately, as a result of everything going on right now, employees, as in workers, have the upper hand when it comes to negotiating their salaries. So, increases in salaries and wages have been going up a lot here over the last couple years, with the current situation that we're in right now driving prices higher on virtually everything as well. So this is kind of one thing, an example that I wanted to give you. So now don't get me wrong, I totally agree with Dave Ramsey. The $1,000 emergency fund is good for a number of different reasons. Number one, it helps you set aside $1,000. At the same time, it also gives you the psychological advantages of, I got $1,000 set aside, this is amazing, and it gives you momentum where you can start building and paying down other debts. So this is very, very powerful, especially in the mindset of the person who sets aside that $1,000. But what I wanted to say in this video is that the $1,000, in my opinion, should really be more like $2,000 or even $2,500 as a true emergency fund. Because here's the thing, let's go back to my personal example. I have $1,000 set aside in my emergency fund. I just blew through $360 of it in no time, getting one little simple fix done on an air conditioning unit. What happened if something else came up? Maybe some tires blow on a car, or transmission goes out on a car, or something else like that, some kind of big repair. Well, now all of a sudden I only have $640 left in the emergency fund. If a transmission goes out in a car, that's going to be way more than $640. That's probably going to be a couple $1,000s these days. Or something even simple. A set of tires is a what? $125, $150 a tire these days? So my point is, that again would wipe out the entire emergency fund. So, now I totally get it. The psychological aspects behind and the mindset behind the emergency fund is very, very valuable. I totally understand that, right? When you get a little bit of money stuck aside, just like some of the other videos that I produced here on the channel over the last month or so, talking about cash stuffing and this whole cash envelope system. Again, once you get a little bit of momentum, kind of setting that money aside, you start to get encouraged. You get the momentum, right? You kind of get into the grind, and it gets exciting when you get a little bit of money set aside. However, when it comes down to the true emergency fund, again, I totally understand that setting money aside these days is very difficult and takes a very, very long time. However, when it comes down to it, and one of these simple repairs like what I just talked about with my own personal life here, when something like that comes in and it wipes out $360 in my case, it takes a very long time to build up that extra $360 because you can't just take $360 one day and plow it back into the account, right? No, it takes 20 here, 50 there, 100 there, maybe 70 there, over long periods of time to build that back up. In the event that something else comes up and maybe bangs away at your emergency account once again, well, there you go. It's all wiped out after taking maybe 5 months, 6 months, a year, or something like that to build that account up in the first place, right? So anyway, this is a totally different time that we are living in right now. The animal has changed. It used to be a nice fluffy rabbit. We could, pet the rabbit, cuddle around with the rabbit, but now we're rolling around with an alligator. It's a totally different animal these days. You don't want to roll around with this guy anymore. No. The days of saving $1,000 as an emergency fund is very good, but ultimately the $1,000 is not going to get us much anymore these days. So if I have to throw my opinion in here on Dave Ramsey and his $1,000 emergency fund, I love it. It's certainly better than zero. Don't get me wrong. At any point, $1,000 will always be much better than zero or anything less than that, right? But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the $1,000 doesn't really go far these days because of all the inflation that we're dealing with right here, right now, on all the goods that we're buying, the products that we're buying on our store shelves, as well as labor. That is something else. And unfortunately, a lot of times when we're faced with some type of situation that arises where we need something fixed, a lot of time it also encompasses labor, whether it happens to be with your furnace, your air conditioning unit, maybe some kind of repairs that happens to your house, like a roof leak or something like that, or maybe repairs to your car or something like that. Unfortunately, all of these encompass labor. Yes, and labor is very, very expensive now. So anyway, just my little take on the $1,000 emergency fund. And again, all due respect to Dave Ramsey and what he's doing. Seriously, he's changing the lives of millions and millions of people. I love his teachings. He's doing a great job. And honestly, he's really helping a lot of people right now, paying down a ton of debt, turning their financial situations around. And like I said, I've applied some of his concepts to my own personal life, and it's been life-changing for me as well. So anyway, I want to throw this out there because the $1,000, man, it was nice back in the day when $1,000 used to actually get us something. But these days, $1,000 is not really much. Doesn't really help us a whole lot, but certainly better than absolutely nothing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. Share this video or any others here on the channel with your friends, family, social media. And of course, go back and check out some of the other thousands of videos right here on the channel. I want to help you out in any way that I possibly can by keeping you updated and of course, helping you through this tough time that we're all living in right here, right now with the different animal that we got to wrestle around with. Yeah, so anyway, stay away from those alligators. All right, anyway, thanks again. I appreciate it. Enjoy your day, and I'll catch you again later in the next video. I'll see you for now. See ya.